still think it's best for your career to be the head coach at Penn State?
Yeah, I take full responsibility for what's happened tonight. I take full responsibility for what's happened this season, and I'm committed to the guys in that locker room.
Welcome into the BlueWhite Tailgate Pawcast. A punt from James Franklin, taking a cue from his offense this season. Mike Gross, the Gross Rational Product, and Frank Bonanni of the York Daily Record alongside me today. And gentlemen, that was the simple question. Yes or no? Do you want to remain, and is it best for your career to remain the head coach at Penn State? James Franklin punts on that question without saying yes. Frank, your initial reaction as the senior member here on the Penn State beat?
Well, as soon as he gave that, I mean, he looked defeated anyway. He really the past 2 weeks. So as soon as he answered like that, I mean, no, I'm not surprised at all that he's gone. Am I surprised he gave that answer? I would be very surprised if you would have told me that just 2 weeks before. But not after what unraveled in unprecedented time in the past week or so. Unbelievable. So, no, I mean, shocking as I'm saying it, we were all expecting the firing to happen once we got to the end of that game in that press conference.
Mike, we talked about it on top.
Yeah, I thought it was really an ugly scene out there, and it was hard. It is amazing. I've been doing this a long, long time. I can't really think of a parallel to this in any sport. This team from which so much was very logically expected to have it all fall apart to this extent. So I mean, obviously, if James doesn't say yes, then you start to wonder. If the time is very, very short.
Let me add something real quick, though. I agree with you, Mike, but the hype was so much for this team in the offseason for months. I've never seen that before at Penn State, where the hype has been from the moment they lost the Orange Bowl till the season. It felt overwhelming and overbearing, and it made me just think, what happens if this doesn't go the way everybody not just wants but expects? And we're talking fans, national media, our media. I didn't think it would mean he would be fired back in August, but it kept making me wonder what's going to happen, because the odds were that it wasn't going to work exactly as planned. Right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the expectations here being overwhelming is a part of this. I have to agree with that. And I'll tell you something that a reader of mine brought up in our little chat thing that I was doing the other night. He said, what if they had instead of getting the very fortunate bracket in the playoff that they did, what if they had lost in the first round? Like, let's say they draw Tennessee in the first round and it's a good game and they lose. Does that flip the expectations enough that this whole thing is different? And the degree of expectation is a little bit saner. And they're number 6 in the country coming into this season. And I thought that was a pretty intriguing idea. Although, again, I think people who know a lot about this sport thought this team was going to be extraordinarily good, thought this roster was extraordinarily good. It wasn't just like we all just bought unfounded hype. This team should have been better than it is.
Well, and I think why is because James Franklin's teams, great, good, or not so, have usually always beaten the teams they're supposed to. You could bank on that. And I think part of the expectations were that, hey, even if they lose to Ohio State again, people upset, they're going to win all the other games. They're going to get back to the playoffs. They're going to have a shot. So when
imagine them doing worse than 10-2, right?
Because he always wins the games they're supposed to win. And when that didn't happen, to me, that the air, gone.
if I could jump in, I think when you talk about all the hype, we're in an era where the organization itself feeds into its own press clippings. No matter what is said, the organization, down ballot, if you will, is feeding into the hype. We have the best running backs in the country. This is the best running back tandem in the country. We're feeding into that. That's driving fans' expectation. Our offensive line, it pushed people around all last year. Everybody's back. They're gonna do the same thing this year. We have a third-year quarterback, and we're putting all these like clippings out there of what Drew Aller can do and can't do. We have all new wide receivers. This is what Pena did at Syracuse. This is what Hudson did at USC. I've been telling my friends, and I've said it on here, about overhyping and the internal hype machine driving a narrative. You could have all the external noise. Frank Bodani could write about this team being great. Mike Gross could write about this team being great. Andrew Klissa opined that this team should go 12-0. But if the internal drive is feeding into those press clippings and then you're under delivering by this much, I think that is the rage bait and the trigger for a lot of the fan base. And I don't want to bring up Joe Paterno because Joe Paterno's not here. Joe Paterno is in the past, but I could say it with Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien wouldn't allow that to happen. He would knock him. Internally, it would be knocked down. Paterno, internally, it would be knocked down. And that's why I feel at times James Franklin is a victim of his own processes, because as the CEO and he's involved in everything, he did not knock that down.
Okay, maybe. I don't know that the players buy into athletic department generated hype, but maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they do.
Well, it makes you wonder because there's guys that are seemingly healthy that were really pretty good last year that are not playing to the level they're supposed to play. And so then how do you explain it? And that's what we would love to hear someone give their actual true feelings, but we wonder, right? So what makes it that? Did even the leaders of this team start to think, not that they're not working, but start to not have the edge? I mean, because, we could see guys, you could name guys on this team that do not look like they did last year. And it makes no sense. They're not playing that they are. They're not performing like they were. And how do you explain it? I mean,
you heard all the players that came in. Only 4 players came in the press room. I did not get over to Zane Durant. I was stuck inside with Deni Dennis Sutton. There was the awkward exchange about him not knowing about Drew Aller being out for the year a little bit. But to me, that was a microcosm of communication within the team, because that would not happen in the past. That would not happen in a buttoned up James Franklin team. They would have been prepped on, you're going to be asked about Drew Aller, and they would have been told coming in there. So that was something. And they're saying all the right things. Deny, how are you going to get it back? The leader's got to take hold. The leader's got to take hold. I don't want to say he sounds hollow, but it kind of sounds hollow because we've heard this multiple weeks in a row now, even after a win. What's not going on? Well, the leader's got to step up and make sure guys are checking the boxes. So do you guys get any sense from the players? Did Durant give any insight over there? Because I didn't get much insight from Ross and Deny that I felt.
Yeah, I'll be totally honest with you. I rarely get any insight from the players. That's just as honest as I can be. I mean, we have to talk to them and we have to try, and they have to try, but I don't get a sense that they said anything different than what you would expect them to say, or that they said it with, maybe with a little less conviction than you would think. You would think somebody would sit in there and vent a little bit, and we didn't really see that. I think that's fair. Yeah,
that's
maybe.
a personality thing, but I agree. I mean, Deny Dennis Sutton has almost seemed tuned out in that regard since they started to lose.
Yeah, he does not seem. He seems resigned, and
yeah, and it's like, well, and that's fine if that's your personality, but now you're playing like it, man. Okay, let's just call it. He's better than what he's playing.
Yeah.
He is. He's
Yeah.
better than that.
And a couple of the guys who might have vented a little bit were not made available. Maybe a guy like Nick Dawkins. Maybe some of the guys in the secondary. I don't know that. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, Nick was good on his teleconference this week with us, talking about his feelings. He's well spoken. But, after they lost the first game, he was upset, but he wouldn't really offer anything, to a lot of our questions. And I expected him to do differently than that as a leader and being almost like a spokesman of the team.
Is that a sign, Frank? Not to cut you off. Is that a sign of actual, we're just putting words out there into the space about being leaders, but deep down, and we're going to get into Terry Smith's press conference a little bit, deep down, this team is actually lacking leaders?
Well, like the phrase would be, you see on message boards and maybe even former players are saying they don't have dogs on this team. Like, so what does that mean? Do they have guys that are not just invested, but are willing to take somebody who is not doing what they're supposed to and maybe not throw them against a locker, but read the riot act, get in them, make sure that this doesn't start to slide. Make sure you fix it. And is money just too much a part of this? Guys are getting paid, and they're getting paid a lot of money, and they are 18, 20, 21, 22 years old. Where does that factor into it when things start to not go right? Last year, everything kind of went right for them leading up to the playoffs. It was an easy buy-in. Other than Ohio State, it was an easy buy-in. Minnesota, they got the breaks. Oh, USC, they probably should have lost, and they won. What's another game? Wisconsin. I mean, Drew Aller goes out. I'm thinking they're toast up there, and
Minnesota, maybe.
Yeah, Minnesota. I mean, so things. And Terry mentioned this. Terry Smith on his press conference. How things went our way. Now you got to figure out how to deal with it when they don't. And I don't think they've been very good at that at all.
A couple of things. I remember I'm thinking about last year. I'm thinking about that game against Notre Dame where Denai Dennis Sutton is standing there looking at the Notre Dame guys and he's screaming at them, "I'm coming for you. I'm gonna rip your head off right now." And that seems like a different human being than the one we've been interacting with. I don't know if you can read too much into. Again, I don't usually get too much from talking to the players, but that I couldn't help but notice that contrast, right?
Yeah, he played his best game of his career against Notre Dame, and then he followed it up with an almost equally dominating performance in the opener against Nevada. Since week 3, I don't know. It just seems like he's not kind of there to me. I mean, that's.
Yeah, and you mentioned Nevada. I mean, James Franklin is going after a white hat over a delay of game call at the end of it. I mean, the trajectory of James Franklin this year, you're going after a white hat over a delay of game call. You're coaching the last play of the Villanova game like it's the final play of the Patriots versus the Seahawks on the goal line for no reason. And then all of a sudden, you're a pancake in your final press conference, just flat as can be with no heart and conviction. The NIL thing is interesting. What does this team have to play for? Because they could pack it in, collect their paychecks, and go home, which in the NFL, they say it doesn't happen. There is no tanking in the NFL because you're always playing for your next paycheck. Terry Smith is now tasked with that, and he was asked directly on what the message is to the team going forward. Here's Penn State head coach Terry Smith.
My message to all of them is you signed up to play football. We love the game of football. And let's keep the main thing the main thing. You only earn opportunity through production on the field. And if you're not productive on the field, doesn't matter where you go, want to sit out, who wants you next. You're not going to make the money you think you're supposed to. You're not going to be drafted where you think you're supposed to be drafted. So my message is we have an opportunity to come together, win the season, shock the world, and we all can have success together.
just one of the many quotes from Terry Smith. Frank, I see you giggling a little bit, but forget the end of it about shock the world. I know it's a cliche. Terry's from the early 90s. He's going to drop a cliche here and there. But the message is good. And he didn't pull any punches in that press conference.
No, I was laughing more at how he ended it when he says, "And we can all be happy together." It sounded like Mr. Rogers.
Put on your sweater. Let's put on our sweater.
He's an interesting dude in that he's so on point. He's turned out to be one of their most productive coaches. He's been known for a long time as one of their most productive recruiters. And he's just got this kind of like cool way of doing things. But I think you kind of know that you don't want to go and test him. But yet, man, I think I'd want him in a card game. I'd want him in a shootout. I think he's cool. I think he's gonna be. I'm just intrigued to see the energy level and the kind of so-called buy-in that this team brings to Iowa.
I think he was a no-brainer for the choice to be the interim head coach, and because of a lot of things that Frank just said there. He was an obvious choice, and I think when he was asked that question that we just ran the video of, again, it makes you think that there was some real divisiveness in this team based on the money stuff. That's what it sounds like. Now, why that's more of a problem here than it is at Ohio State or Georgia or anywhere else, I don't know. But I thought he was, as he started talking there, he was a little bit fired up because I think he and to be clear, different than the NFL, these guys are getting paid, but much different than the NFL. They're not really under contract. And if these guys want to say I'm a redshirt, they can redshirt. If they want to opt out of the season, they can opt out of the season. So he's managing all of that over the next, I guess really it's a month where you can transfer anywhere you want after a coaching change, right? I think that's the deal. My point is that there's a lot of upheaval and potential for guys to just bail out that there would not be in pro football, and he's got to navigate that, and God bless him, because that is a big job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, since the deal's been done, we could say it could have happened it's very on Penn State that it happened the way it happened in the middle of the season. Again, I think it had to happen in this moment. I think anybody to argue that would be hard pressed to say, why are you doing it now? But who's the guy? Who is on your short list to come into Penn State, Frank, and take over this program to make it a national championship caliber program?
Wow, that's a loaded question because
it's what I'm good at.
Who are the thing is you need somebody to do the last final step. And who do you get that's going to guarantee the success that they want? The last step, not just be good. Matt Rule could come in here and be good. Can Matt Rule be the guy to take them to the final step? That's what I think. There's a lot of tough calls because I think a lot of guys could do a good job. I'm not sure who the one guy is that's going to, the few people that you would say, I think that I would say would be unattainable, right? They've got great jobs. They're not going anywhere. Look to Georgia, look to Oregon, look, Nick Saban's not coming out of retirement. Okay. So
somebody might come out of retirement. I'm not saying
retirement. Urban Meyer would come out of retirement before Nick Saban. Nick Saban, I don't think wants anything to do with coaching in this age anymore. Okay. I don't know about Urban Meyer, and I'm not sure he would be good, but he might be the only person that maybe we need to worry about of them hiring before the end of the season because everybody else is coaching, right? Who else would they hire eventually that doesn't have a job right now?
and just go, I just want to make a point because about that final step. To me, the final step to get Penn State to a national championship falls, and this is how close James Franklin was, 7 minutes and 5 seconds left in the fourth quarter, 2017 at Ohio State. Trace McSorley first and goal, a 1 yard run to the OSU 4. Saquon Barkley, minus 3 yard run on third down. And I'm sorry, first and goal, Trace McSorley had a 3 yard run. Trace McSorley, a 1 yard run. Saquon Barkley, loss of 3 yards. Penn State kicks a field goal. It's now 38-27 instead of 42-27. To me, that's how close James Franklin was to winning a national championship. Compound those 3 plays to basically seal that game against Ohio State. 4th and 5 at home. Put those 2 things together, we're talking about a totally different era of Big Ten football if James Franklin wins that game in 2017.
Well, potentially. And, 2016, that team was a dangerous team that would have been a tough out if they'd have made the playoff. And you could have made an argument for them making the playoff. I think 2017 team was a little better. I think that was probably his best team, James's best team. And they came really close. You're right. They came really close to, a lot of different, it could be a much different narrative, but, you don't know. The interesting thing about this is most of the gains that they made in the Franklin era that manifested themselves on the football field happened in a period of about a couple months from that Minnesota game in 2016 to the Big Ten championship game. They never really got past that level, which they went from nowhere to that level in a couple of months. That's the weird thing. Now he did of course, James did other things in terms of building the whole operation, but that's the crazy part. And another thing that manifests, I think, how he has built this program is the quality of potential candidates that we're talking about here. I mean, back then they couldn't have got most of the guys that everybody's talking about as potential the next head coach.
Yeah, I mean that is true. That's one thing when you talk about elevating it. And I know John U. Bacon's been out there pumping Bill O'Brien. It's all in the book in fourth and long. I know that. I consider reaching out to John to get him on the podcast, maybe over the off season. But James does deserve a lot of credit, and I feel it got so ugly at the end. I think a lot of that's going to be lost on a lot of people.
Well, maybe, and maybe people will stop hyperventilating, and settle down and have a little perspective too. I don't know. I've given up trying to figure out humans long ago.
Well, when you do what they did in 16, which was really close, only a couple of years in, and then you get close, then no one's going at a place like Penn State, especially you gotta finally get there. Like, you set yourself up. You can't keep failing. You can't keep not getting there. And I think no matter what you do to build and to keep it and to make it steady, and is a tremendous accomplishment, more than most people realize. You're never going to get appreciated if you don't one time get where everybody knows you almost were, but could not get. I mean, unless you do it, it's just gonna wear out. I mean,
it's going to wear out. I think that's right. 12 years is a long time.
Yes.
And for most of those 12 years to be on this plateau and not getting to the next plateau, that's a long time.
It was almost like his time and his energy were almost spent, and we were getting the last little bit of this in one final push.
Good call.
And if one thing went off, it was almost like he had nothing else to give, because Penn State's been through under him tough times before. You never saw this from James Franklin in 2021. I mean, my goodness, Sean Clifford gets hurt. They're like number 2, 3, 4 in the country, and they hardly win a game the rest of the year. He didn't give that up then. I just think it was almost like he was almost done before this. Like, you don't want to say he's running on autopilot, but
I mean, he would have been energized by beating Oregon. I mean, everything you were just talking about, Frank, I think would have flipped it a little bit if he
you hope,
Oregon.
you hope, I guess. But you know what? You saw signs that we knew, but we tried to back off on the first 3 games. Like, those first 3 games, to me, the feeling was not there. It did not look right.
And you're not playing them.
And you just kept saying, well, this is why, or this could be why, or that could be why. But the whole time you're saying, we got to see it look different against Oregon. And honestly, for 3 quarters, it didn't look one bit different against Oregon. I don't know how they even got themselves in the position. It was so mind bending that they were even in position to win that game.
True.
It makes me wonder if winning that game would have solved this. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think they would have lost these last 2 games, but
I think it would have changed the mental and emotional state of James Franklin. Don't you think?
Yeah, but would it have changed the defense looked like a completely different animal from one week to the next? Would it have changed that?
I don't know. Yeah.
Tony Rojas still would have got hurt. I mean, what happens if they're 6-0 or whatever, and Aller still gets hurt for the year? Where are we headed now?
Yeah.
That's all true.
Yeah.
Penn State has to plot a course forward, and the Lettermen are going to be a big part of that. Talking about former Penn State running back Stephen Pitts and former vice president of the Penn State Lettermen's Club. Stephen, you heard Pat Kraft talk yesterday as he introduced Terry Smith as the interim head coach and also officially announcing the letting go of James Franklin. When you heard Pat Kraft talk about what he said about the direction of the program and who they're looking to bring in, the character behind the coach, what was your initial reaction to that?
Well, I think Pat said what he needed to say, and it was correct. And I hope that I'm sure he's holding to that, and he's going to get somebody in that. Look, that program is not easy, right? We need somebody that's diverse, not just in their recruiting and not just in their personality, but also diverse in their tactical skills in the game. It's not an easy position. We have a extremely knowledgeable fan base. So whoever it's going to be is going to have to be able to suffice all of those things. And I just off the top of my head, I can maybe think of maybe 2 or maybe 3 guys that might be able to come in and pull that off.
Well, I'll have to ask you who the 2 or 3 guys are, Stephen.
Who do you got, Stephen?
Well, it's just opinions for me. I mean, I know nothing from the inside, but obviously, somebody like Matt Rule would be a great candidate, right? He's been out there. He's a former Penn State guy. He's a former State College guy. He's had a lot of success in college football. I think he's doing a really nice job making Nebraska a respectable program again as far as wins and losses. I mean, I think he would be a great choice. I also think, somebody like Cignetti out at Indiana, I mean, for him to build what he built with what he had to build it with, I mean, it's pretty damn amazing.
It is.
I make sure every time they're on the screen, I'm tuning in to watch them because, man, I love the way they play. So, those are 2 guys that jump to mind for me. Yeah.
Really, really good point, Stephen, because I think part of this, right, and what Pat explained, this is modern college football. It's going to take a head coach to be able to do things quickly, decisively. And at Penn State, they're going to have to walk a narrow edge with the tradition, how you do things, but also you can't compete with Ohio State and Oregon if you can't get the same high school kids and the same kids in the transfer portal, right? So how do you navigate all that? And Cignetti goes in there to Indiana of all places, right? And somehow is doing it. It's amazing, right?
It really is. I mean, look, you bring up a good point, Frank. I mean, the NIL and coaches having to deal with that pretty much retired Coach Saban, right? I mean, he said that was one of the main reasons why he left coaching.
We were just talking about.
Yeah, and I'm sure all of you have some wherewithal on what's going on behind the scenes and what it takes to pull all those things off, whether it's the contracts, picking up players off of the portal. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot beyond just football to manage, right? So I don't know how any coach would manage that. I mean, that's got to be a tough job to do.
Stephen, can you see how that stuff you were just talking about, NIL, money, transfer portal, all of that, can you see how that could be a toxic element in a team? Because it sort of feels like, we don't know, but it feels like that was a problem with this team.
I don't know if it was a problem or not, but I definitely see how it could be toxic to the sport, right? I mean, look, if you've got a guy like you've got a guy like oh gosh, okay, let's take Drew Aller for example, right? Well, Drew Aller, I'm sure, had a really nice NIL deal. I'm sure somebody's footing the bill for that deal, and now he's down and not performing for the rest of the season. So I'm sure whoever was putting up the money or whatever, I'm sure they're disappointed in that. I think in other ways where I think it might affect practice, right? Maybe a coach isn't as likely to work these guys as hard for fear of injuries and everything because of the upfront investment that people have put into these guys. So yeah, I mean, the NIL, I don't think there's anything wrong with with the NIL, right? Name, image, likeness. I think that was fair, right? The thing is, it's not name, image, likeness. Right now, it's more of a like a collective, right? I mean, if it was just name, image, and likeness, the guys that were performing better and were having their jerseys sold, and maybe somebody wanted to put them on a commercial or something, they get a percentage of, basically what they bring to the table. But that's not what we have nowadays. That this isn't name, image, and likeness because a lot of these guys aren't really marketable yet that are getting paid. So yeah, I do think I don't think it's good for college football. Just my opinion, but I'm not the one in control, and I don't think my opinion really matters that much. So,
Stephen, as a former player, though, and not just a former player, but someone that's been close to the program for a while, when you watch this team this season, do you have any, what are your thoughts? I mean, were you, as far as them hitting the first few games and then where it quickly went, do you have any thoughts on what you maybe saw, what you feel happened here? Oh,
look, I mean, I got to tell you, I've got a lot of thoughts, and a lot of them, I have these conversations with former teammates of mine, and I'm not going to get into any depth here, but the one thing I will say is, the one thing I observed, and so did everyone else, it wasn't the same team that we saw last year, right? The team last year had some confidence. They had some fire. I mean, the drives we would put together were really nice. This team this team this year it just wasn't the same team. Why? I don't know. I don't live, sleep, breathe, practice with these guys all the time. So I mean, anything I would say would only be speculation. But yeah, definitely not the same team that we all saw last year.
Stephen, there's going to be new leadership at Penn State in the football program. How important is it? Because one of the things that make Penn State unique is the Lettermen's Club. Not a lot of universities have that bond that goes from generation of Penn State players that you could put a Chuck Fusina in the same room as a Trace McSorley. Obviously, some feelings get hurt for when your coach gets dismissed. How important is it for the Lettermen to still maintain that bond going forward to make sure that the James Franklin era Lettermen of the Micah Parsons, the Trace McSorleys, the Sean Cliffords, Drew Allers of the world are still in that fold to carry on not only for the fans, but to like a united program going forward?
Well, there's a lot that needs to happen. I think initially the foundation was built, obviously, when Joe was here. So many of the players that played before me, and actually a lot of players that played after me, I met through by seeing them on the sidelines. I met by seeing them in the Letterman parking lot. I met by seeing them in the lounge. And most, if not all of those things were kind of put there and put into motion by Joe. Initially with the sideline pass, years ago, I was probably a kid, and Joe kind of told me this story, and he said, we had some guys that wanted to come back to a game and they couldn't get tickets. So his solution was, okay, well, from now on, if one of the guys wants to come back to the game, give him a pass and let him go down to the sidelines. So so what wound up happening was anytime you graduated, from the time you graduate, to the time you die, if you want to walk into a game at Penn State and get a sideline pass, Joe thought that should be right. It was really, so moving things along, and I talked a little bit about the lounge and the parking lot. Bill O'Brien did a nice job pulling in all the Lettermen, trying to rally around the guys that were on the team, because as you guys know, we had a lot of guys that wanted to leave. And at that time, I don't think it was a good choice, because we could still play. We just had to forego a bowl game back then, and it wasn't like the playoff system that we have now, where you're going to potentially miss 2, 3, 4 games, right? So we had some guys leave, but he brought us all in. I remember he brought us into Aluba Hall to basically just to sync up with the guys that were there, to let them know that they're not alone, that they still had the support of the Lettermen, and he really valued our opinion. We had several meetings with him. I had several meetings with him because I was the vice president at the time. And then when he left, James really picked right up and continued to value us and meet with us and wanted to know our opinions on things. So, I thank James, very much for basically including the Lettermen, and, still building on the foundation of what is Penn State football. So,
Stephen, do you think that this program can accomplish what everybody wants with the next head coach? Meaning, do what you guys did in '94, do what you guys did in 1986.
So the question is, can we?
Okay, maybe will you? How's that?
I would like to say yes, right? I mean, look, I believe in that program. Good, bad, indifferent, wins, losses. It's my program. It's our program. So yeah, I would think that, Pat is looking for somebody that can come in and accomplish exactly that, but do it the right way, right? So yeah, I believe that we will, and I believe that we can, and I'm looking forward to seeing that happen.
I like it.
I'm good. Stephen, thank you so much. I really appreciate the insight. I really appreciate you coming on here on such short notice, especially at, as we call it, like a sticky situation with everything going on at Penn State and giving us
time. I agree. At this time,
thank you very much, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate your continued positivity towards the program, guys.
We want to thank Stephen Pitts for joining us here on the BlueWhite Tailgate Pawcast. And remember, folks, I should be saying this a lot more. Tell your friends about us, like us. It's a free podcast. You're getting insight from 2 Heisman Trophy voters and myself. I'm not the Heisman Trophy voter on this podcast. Frank Andy Mike Gross doing it a long time. I just try to bring some of the opinions and let them go off and tell me I'm either off the deep end or not. But follow us on our social media pages as well as our YouTube page, BlueWhite Tailgate Pawcast. And thank you very much. 12,000 views, 200 comments on our post-game recordings. Really appreciate that. With that being said, guys, let's go and check out the email mailbag. And this one didn't take long to pop into my email. It is once again from David, who's asked on the podcast kind of about the university and Joe Paterno, Coach Franklin acknowledging him.
Right.
Says, hey, Andrew, it took Terry Smith 52 seconds in his press conference to recognize Coach Paterno. That's how it's done. David, thank you for the email. He signs it the old grizzled one. Love it. I love it. And yes, David, I agree. I do agree with him. I think in terms of money and donors and everything, Coach Paterno has to be recognized, at least from the athletic side, because the university has alienated that side. And that's when I always say the university put James Franklin a little bit behind the 8-ball. So another email into it. Andrew, Mike, and Frank, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is the Penn State head coaching job entering the 2026 season? If it was basically championship or bust for Franklin this season, how patient do you expect the Penn State fan base and boosters to be with the next head coach? That's part one. And thoughts on a wild card name for the next Penn State coach. Is Pat Fitzgerald up there? His Northwestern teams played in as many Big Ten title games as Franklin's, 2 each, with significantly different talent pool. That's from Jacob in the great city of Reading, Pennsylvania. Jacob, thank you very much for the email.
I would say it's an 8.5 on a scale to 10. It's one of the best. It's one of the best 10 jobs in the country, I think. And I think James Franklin gets some credit for that fact, as we said a couple minutes ago. The fact that they're going to get the caliber of guy that they're probably going to be able to get for the next coach is I think evidence of that. Pat Fitzgerald crossed my mind, and then a couple of readers mentioned him too. I don't know what to make of that whole hazing thing. You would really have to vet the hell out of that. I mean, that's part of it. But I don't think he's crazy. I don't think he's a crazy choice, but I don't think he would not be in my top 5. I don't think if I would knock out the top 5 right now.
No, I mean, I think you have to have someone who is strong foundationally, but dynamic to a point, and can prove to you that they can recruit at an even higher level in some ways than James Franklin. And I don't know where that would be with Pat Fitzgerald. I mean, he recruited a whole different success type at Northwestern, but I mean, we're talking, I mean, I'll say it again. You have to be able to get the top high school kids in the country at least.
Kurt Signetti.
What's that?
Unless you're Kurt Signetti.
Well, but Kurt's getting him in the transfer portal.
I know.
Well,
but I don't know that he's getting guys that
he's coaching them up a little bit. There's a lot of scheme there. I mean, he's pulling out of the portal. Yeah.
It's getting the right fit too. Is it 2 years in a row he's got a quarterback out of the transfer portal? So,
yes.
So yeah, he's got a mojo there, but I don't. I kind of thought about him years before, but I have to admit I did not think about him recently as a potential possibility. I think the harder wild card is a guy like Will Stein at Oregon, who's a coordinator, who's got all the talk in the world, but has never done this job. Yeah. That's what I always wonder about. How do you find that up and coming guy, but who's never done it? How do you put the trust in that?
I don't think it's going to be a coordinator. I think it's going to be, because of what you just said, Frank, I think it's going to be an established head coach. And I mean, I can't believe that Signetti would want to come here based on what's happening right now, but you gotta call and find out, because what he's doing doesn't make any sense. I mean,
yes, you're absolutely right. And the crazy thing is these people get so much money, but yet if you say, Kurt, we're going to double your salary, then all of a sudden everything changes. I don't understand why you need that kind of money. Maybe but
you're working 15-hour days. You're not going out and buying Rolexes and stuff. I mean,
Frank, I need a number from you though. What's the number on 1 to 10? How good a job is Penn State for you?
Oh, I'd agree with Mike. I was debating whether to say 8 or 9. Definitely not a 10. I think I'd lean a little more toward 8, because I still think, Georgia, Alabama, the support, everything at those places, Ohio State is a better job, though not necessarily an easier job or a more comforting job, or but a better job because you have more support at Ohio State. You can go out and get the wide receiver who is going to come in to your program and make a difference and help you win immediately. Penn State can't get a wide receiver to save their lives that will make a difference, it seems like.
Those guys pop
No,
so much.
I feel bad about saying that to
Right?
these kids. But what?
Penn
Those
State,
guys pop so much. The wide receiver position. If you think about the best teams in the country over the last 10 years and some of the receiver play, think of some of the receiver play that Ohio State has gotten. Think of it, Devontae Smith. That kind of it may not be the most important element. You got to get closer to the line of scrimmage to get the most indispensable element. But that's the part that pops when you have guys on the outside that are playmakers. Yeah.
And that's why I would say that I'll go with Penn State's 2016 team down the stretch over the 17 team as better, more dangerous, could have won it all. And a big part of that is 16, they had Chris Godwin and Mike Gesicki. They did not have a wideout in 2017 that could take you, to me, to the title game. And that's how important that position is. And it's even.
But they did have a quarterback. They did have a quarterback to take shots and to put wide receivers in positions to make.
Yeah, same guy both years. But
that was more characteristic of the 16 team.
And that's something that this team's lacking, though. Like, Drew Aller's not putting his wide receivers also in the best position, throwing them open. And Andy Kotelnicki's not giving Drew Aller the best scheme in getting the wide receivers open, I feel, or telling him what reads are or where things should be looking. I feel
that brings me to one name that most people are going to laugh at, but I think he should be under consideration, and that's Joe Moorhead. He's not going to be.
He's not going
to. I think he should be.
I saw that
he would be in my top 5.
Got some action, and I wouldn't rule out, depending on who comes back, Joe Moorhead coming back as an offensive coordinator. I think Penn State's a 9.5 job because there's a lot of people that would say James Franklin should have been let go after 2 back-to-back subpar years. Not having a backup quarterback develop to take a snap in Iowa is very bad look.
That could have gotten fired this year if that would have happened.
Exactly. So,
and it might happen on tonight.
The patient level, I'm thinking back to me asking James Franklin a question about Taquan Roberson and the gate going up in the tunnel, and I'm getting a death stare as this is going on. So,
by the way, Roberson is still playing college football.
He's still playing college football
at the University of Buffalo.
What Penn State has the resources. It's not a 10. Maybe I'm overstating it at a 9.5. So let's just call it a 9. It has the resources. It's not going to be the paycheck resources that a lot of the other places have, but
it's pretty. I think they're pretty good in that.
They're pretty good, but the patience level at Penn State, I know they just fired their coach midseason. The patience level at Penn State is a little bit higher than all those other jobs that are so-called better or are better than Penn State. Correct?
You're saying that Penn State fans are more patient or less patient?
I'm saying they're the patient level at Penn State, the pressure a little bit, it's a little bit less, and the fans are a little bit more patient.
Than Ohio State. Maybe than Ohio State, but there aren't many places that.
I don't think Alabama's a very patient fan base.
Right. No.
I think is a patient fan base. I
don't know about Oregon, but.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that's what I said. Talking a little bit about Iowa, we got to talk about Ethan Grunkmeyer and Terry Smith. They are walking into a buzzsaw. Outside of Ohio State and Beaver Stadium, this is the most hostile environment that you will walk into, a night game at Kinnick Stadium. And when the Hawkeye fans sense blood, they are ruthless. They're ruthless to the media on the sidelines. They are ruthless to everybody. Once that wave happens, duck and cover, my friend. Duck and cover. That's all I'll say. How's this?
Obviously, it's an unbelievably tough spot for Grunkemeyer to be going into in his first start. It doesn't get any easier.
Well, put it this way: if they have the talent and the ability to step up and make this a game, okay. But if they play like they did the last 2 weeks, especially up front on the lines, they will get murdered. Okay, because Iowa, that's where they thrive. You said that they will sense blood. they will just beat them apart a bit at a time. And before you know it, the score will look really ugly. Now, I expect Penn State, however, to play better up front. I expect them to look more urgent, to block better. I mean, they got to protect Ethan Grunkemeyer with his life, for gosh sakes, right? I mean, seriously, kid's never played. I mean, Iowa's going after him hard. You're going to have to run the ball. And the only way you're going to run the ball is if the offensive line decides that they're going to play like everyone hoped to God they would from week one and have not. I think it's still there, possibly. It might still be in them, but they have to win up front, or this will get ugly.
And the mental and emotional, like the psyche of the team, has to be different now. I mean, it's a different deal right now. At a certain point, maybe you hit rock bottom and you get loose and you don't give a crap anymore, and in a good way. Yeah, that could happen. I'm interested to see what happens from here on out. We could start to see that on Saturday night.
Terry Smith needs to take a page from his former coach, Tom Bradley, and talk that team up before leaving the hotel. I'm not going to say I talked to Tom Bradley, but I did reach out and ask if he spoke to Terry Smith. I'm not revealing what he said, but if I'm Tom Bradley, I'm telling Terry Smith, or Terry Smith asking Tom Bradley, what did you say going into the Horseshoe in 2012? What did you say to the guys? Tom Bradley, I know, told the guys in 2012 that the cops are changing the route, and I told them, no, we're going right through downtown, and you take us right through downtown where all those Ohio State fans are and everything on the way to the stadium. Now, that didn't actually happen. They took in the normal route, but that's what Bradley said to the guys about, like, just going right through it. And they walked into the shoe and they walked out with a victory. I think that would be a pretty good tack for Terry Smith to take in Iowa City.
Frank, remember when we tried to do that? Tried to go right through the town to get to our parking spot, and oh my God, we were usurped by a phalanx of Ohio State troopers, and that was a disaster. And we
purposely sent in misdirections. I think that's the way I'm reading it. But the thing is, he did a great job. He pulled out the Wildcat. Now, that was not a good Ohio State team. Actually, a really bad Ohio State team that he beat. And then they went to Wisconsin and got their doors blown off. So my only point is that Penn State is playing a team that's on the upside, on the upswing against Iowa. And if they don't play better, Iowa will hurt them at their weakest point, because Penn State's weakest point has been their effort on the lines, up front, at scrimmage. And they have had no answers. And on defense, it's almost even more alarming because it looks worse. Yeah. So if they, I wouldn't have said this. I would have thought Penn State on defense would be able to, say, rattle Iowa's quarterback because he's an Iowa quarterback, right? But I'm not so sure I have confidence in that. I guess we just have to see it. We have to see a turnaround in the approach, in the attitude, in the emotions. More than
you're right, Frank. This Iowa team is a little bit different. Most Iowa teams are unbelievably hard to throw on. They're very bend but not break defensively. They make it very difficult to drive the ball down the field. This team maybe is a little better on the line of scrimmage, which does not bode well for what Frank's talking about there. But it is going to be they probably do have to run the ball in order to throw it. And again, you're putting a lot on Grunkemeyer, but Frank's right. The O-line and the D-line, and Terry Smith said this yesterday or whatever that was.
Gotta be tougher up front.
Yeah.
Grunkemeyer barely thrown more passes than Callista has in a game, for God's sakes. People have heard about his name for a long time, but Ethan has very little actual in-game experience. He's never started a game. He's never thrown a pass in a game where it really mattered. Yeah. Ever. Yeah.
There's a whole section of the fan base that salivates over an Instagram video. So let's not set the masses up to hate us here. We have to give out a player of the game in the Lions Roar. For me, it's an easy one, and he probably is going to win it next week for Penn State, no matter what happens. Well, maybe not. I'm speaking out of turn here. But for me, the Lions Roar has to go to Katron Allen, because He actually played pretty well. He got the football. He played pretty well. And my Lions roar goes to Katron Allen. I know we're getting to this at the end of the show before we make our picks for this week, but am I right? You got to ride Katron Allen at least to start this game out in Iowa City.
Yeah, I'd like to pick somebody different, but I can't think of anybody. I mean, the kicker, Katron Allen, and the kicker have had a really good year, but the kicker was a complete non-factor last week. So I will concur with Katron. We normally each should pick a player of the game, but these are beyond extraordinary circumstances we're dealing with here.
Yeah, Katron Allen is the obvious choice. I mean, Mike and I are sitting there, and I couldn't believe it. Katron Allen had a jump cut in that game where he got it, and I don't know if I've ever seen him pull that move off like that.
That was a little different. That was
He's a different cat this year. Yeah. He's a different cat. They got to try to ride him. If you're looking for others, I really liked Devontae Ross as a kid, as a person, and of course, he had the most explosive play. I don't really care for his fumbled punt if you're a Penn State fan. Yeah. But and then Aldavian Collins, the squirrel, I think as a kind of behind the scenes guy, the squirrel is coming. He's playing well. So watch for him in Iowa City, okay?
Get your acorns out. Get your acorns out for the squirrel. All right, pick the game real quick. I'm going 27-20 Iowa is what I'm picking. This game, a lot like that 2010 Iowa game, I feel like. A little more points, though.
I will go 23-20 Iowa.
Ooh, that's the score I have in my online prediction. I wavered at that because I could see Iowa beating them down. But I think Penn State is going to at least come out with a different attitude and a unity, and they're going to at least give them a good fight for sure.
So I'm the hater. I'm the one that picked 27-20. I'm the one.
You're hardly off from us. What are you talking about? I thought you would go
hate. There's not about hate.
I'm a hater. The Instagram page, the people hate me because I made a comparison of pregame an hour before Oregon and pregame an hour. You don't know what you're talking about. Have you ever been to a game before? The world of social hates me. So
I retweeted you on that. I like that.
Thank you. I thought it was good too. The comparisons were so stark in excitement levels, and it had nothing to do with wins or losses. It's just one environment to another. Just saying.
I think it had something to do with wins and losses.
Well,
yeah, I kind of think it did.
New era of Penn State football is upon us. Terry Smith, the new head coach at Penn State. How long does it last? Terry has his name in for the job. If they win out and everybody comes together, shock the world, baby. I love it.
Shock the world.
For Mike Gross and Frank Andy, I'm Andrew Klista. Email the show, BlueWhite Tailgate Pawcast. Make sure you like, follow, share, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also on the YouTube pages. Give us a listen on Spotify as well. And we're on the radio up in State College. That does it for this edition. Penn State travels to Iowa. We will see you after the game.